What is up today, YouTube? So today is going to be a story time, then we're going to warm up and talk about a silly little injury I had, and then we're going to get into the main battle. But we're going to kick it off with the story time a little bit, and we're going to talk briefly about this logo, and then I just want to talk about my background in graffiti. So there's a really good memory about it, and then there's a memory where I realized I was an adult. But for the past month and a half, I've been trying to figure out a logo. Just because, ever since I painted incognito on the wall, my wife said, why did you paint the whole name out? Why didn't you come up with a logo instead? And that kind of got my brain working. I played around with incognito for a few weeks, didn't really find anything I liked. And then I started playing around with the new channel tag name CP Skates. And I ended up coming up with CP with the rat in it. And if you guys haven't been around for a long time, I have a skate rat tattooed down my entire forearm. And for a long time in the handboard community and that's how people knew me. I've actually had logos before with just the rat. But let's get into what got me into graffiti and my little bit of background that I do have in it. So I grew up on the edge of a really ghetto town. Very low income, huge blood and crip presence at the time. And while I lived on the edge of it, so I didn't really live in it, I went to school in it. And the school was kind of tough to go to for being just like, at the time I was really small, being a small white guy. It was kind of challenging. So I really didn't like school. I got bullied a lot. I had to get into a lot of fights over wearing blue or red shirts, which was, the school's colors and that. But in 6th grade, when I was 10 years old, I was accepted into the after school program, which was kind of like a YMCA without us having a YMCA. And after the bell would ring and everyone would go home, I would have 4 additional periods. Now, the first quarter of the year, those 4 periods are picked for you. The last 3 quarters of the year, you had to pick and choose your classes. These were substitute teachers, so they don't have teaching degrees. They only have like a 6-week class permit. But it's just a way for these specific people to gain a little extra money because they were getting paid part-time to do this. So I went through my first 3 periods, my first day in the after-school program. In my last period, I go up to the 4th floor. I'd never been up there before. I walk to the back of this hall and I walk into this cathedral-sized room. Huge, huge room. And this guy is painting a 10-foot by 10-foot landscape painting with this massive chip brush, and it looked beautiful. And I remember being like, I like this guy already. And the way he talked like he was from New York. He didn't care if he used language or anything. Being around kind of kids, and at the time that was amazing to me. So after seeing what he did, for the next 3 months he taught me and the other students how to paint landscapes. And over the years I painted about 100 landscapes, but it's something I really don't do anymore, and I believe only 2 survived, which my parents have, and I did that for a while. So every now and again, if you see me paint something by hand, you'll see me add like realistic water to it just because I kind of know how to do that. I just don't do it much anymore. But we're jumping into graffiti. So the last day of that first quarter, each teacher's job was to sell themselves to you so you would pick them again. If no student picked the teacher, well then the teacher would lose his job in a sense, because remember, they're only substitutes. So nobody else in my class really liked the art teacher. On the last day of school though, I walk in, he has another 10-foot by 10-foot canvas, and it was this skull with this beautiful angel of death, and he's spray painting it. And I'm like, whoa, how did you do that? What? So on his last day, him trying to sell himself to us, he taught us how to write our last names in graffiti. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Turns out I'm the only student to pick him again. And he got to keep the position. So he was very thankful, very grateful. So I was only in that school for another 6 months after that. But for those 6 months, he taught me the fundamentals about graffiti. And that's all we did every single day. And I said to him, why are you okay to teach a student about this? And he kind of gave me his backstory, which was pretty much that he grew up in New York and he made a name for himself in the graffiti world. And then obviously at the time, especially in the early 2000s and even earlier, graffiti was highly illegal. He started to get into some pretty big legal trouble in New York. So now he was teaching in Pennsylvania, and then once a month he'd drive the hour and a half to New York City, tag some stuff and drive back. And I'm like, whoa, this guy's being really honest too. So years go by and I start skating. I start skating foundation and DIY spots and stuff that has graffiti on the walls, abandoned buildings. And I go, wow, some of these graffiti pieces are kind of bad. And I start tagging, I start doing my own things. Throw-ups or throwies are very shortened versions of whatever name you're going by. So at the time, my Xbox gamer tag was Madman Sniper. So I started going by Madman and using a double M, and I started tagging that everywhere. Across the street from my parents' house was an abandoned house, and had been abandoned and condemned for like a decade. And on the back of the house, I sprayed it a big MM. Years go by, I come back from college, and I see someone had bought it and completely redone it, and now they're trying to scrub off my spray paint. And I felt awkward, I felt weird, like I was obviously guilty. So after like the third day of watching them try to scrub this off, my dad is a janitor. So I called him up, because I had already moved down to my parents' house, and said, hey, can you bring home a bottle of turpentine? And I walked across the street and I offered to this neighbor to clean it up, and I did. I ended up scrubbing the whole back of it. It's not there anymore. So that was kind of me realizing that maybe I should stop doing graffiti. And I have for a long time. So none of my executions are perfect or that good, but my fundamentals are still there a little bit. So this was just fun to do. It's gonna get destroyed, I know that. It was also testing out the logo to see how drawing on thick spray painted lines would look, and it doesn't look that bad. But that's enough talking about my backstory of graffiti. Let's get into warming up. Now, very quickly, I ended up rolling my ankle in my sleep. I don't know how I did it, but this is my third small session back. So we're gonna take it easy. We're gonna warm up with some very basic tricks, just ollies and things like that. Then we're gonna move into the main battle, and hopefully I can stick it out to the end.